Magister Dixit. Magister Dixit. Magister Dixit. Magister Dixit.
Welcome to Magister Dixit, a podcast that invites you on a journey into realms of expertise, imagination, and occultism. Delve deep into the minds of those that have dedicated their lives to mastering their crafts, and how having an esoteric or supernatural influence has shaped that path. In each episode, we will engage with magisters, true masters of their respected fields, as they share their unparalleled insights, unconventional knowledge, and their unique perspectives. Venture into the mystical as we converse with filmmakers, musicians, and renowned authors. Listen to their perspectives on their respected disciplines and how being a practitioner of occultism has influenced their craft. Remember, in the realm of knowledge, Magister Dixit, the master has spoken. In this episode, we have the pleasure of welcoming Paul Joseph Rovelli, who is the director of the Gnostic Church of L.V.X. During this enlightening conversation, Paul shares his insights into the rich spiritual heritage of the Gnostic Church of L.V.X., discussing its philosophy, practices, and teachings. We also dive into Paul's journey, from his background in occultism to his deep involvement in metaphysics and spirituality. Discover how his diverse experiences have shaped his approach to spirituality and his role as the director of the Gnostic Church of L.V.X. Whether you're an experienced seeker on the path of Gnosticism or know someone interested in exploring the new dimensions of spirituality, this episode promises to enlighten, inspire, and uplift your soul. Whether you're an experienced seeker on the path of Gnosticism or someone interested in exploring new dimensions of spirituality, this episode promises to enlighten. Get ready to immerse yourself into the mysteries of the Gnostic tradition and embark on a transformative journey of self-discovery with Paul Joseph Rovelli. Let's welcome Paul to the show. Paul, welcome to Magister Dixit. I'd like to welcome you to the show. And in true fashion with how the show starts always, I'd like for you to maybe share with us some brief details about your upbringing and early life and how your childhood experiences shaped your journey and eventually your involvement with Thelema.
Deep question, one I've been thinking about a good bit because I think it's important for any person with any sort of a Gnostic bend, so that my childhood should not be that much different from others. As a young boy, as a young person, we all first begin to exhibit preferences. The world presents things to us, and we choose this over that. For example, I had an artistic bend, but even though as a young boy I also wanted to do athletics and things like that, but I was also the runt of the pack. I started school a year early, so I was smaller than everyone else. When my stature is naturally smaller than everyone else. I'm a short, fat Italian these days. But that created limitations. I couldn't compete on the field, but I still had this tremendous art in music and piano. And I would say my friends and family were all very, very much different from who and what I was. And that led me down, a real inner voice that I just always followed. I was also extremely religious. I was raised in the Roman Catholic Church. I think we didn't have to go to church until our first communion, and I went about 3 or 4 years earlier than that, and insisted on doing it. I loved the Mass. So, I continued that into my teenage years. Started pulling books out of the school library on the occult, I bought the Bhagavad Gita. I met some Hare Krishnas in the subway or something like that. I think I got a free copy. As a matter of fact, they gave it to me. I gave them like $1 donation.
You grew up in New Jersey?
I grew up in New Jersey, a small town called Saddlebrook, which had the hotel, the Marriott Hotel that the New York Giants stayed at. So it's kind of on the maps, sort of.
Very familiar with it. I'm from Middletown, New York, so very familiar. I'm out here now in Pittsburgh, just east of Pittsburgh, but I'm very familiar with Southbrook. Going to the games and stuff, you know.
Yeah, I went to one Giants game. I'm not a football fan, and I think the one thing I learned was football's much better on TV. Baseball's better in the stadium. Go to Yankee Stadium.
Unfortunately, my father was a Jet fan, so we became very accustomed to losing.
I was, usually when I run into Met fans or living up here where I'm living now, I'm right on the border of Vermont. I meet a lot of Boston fans, the Yankees' mortal enemy. So when they tell me they're a Boston fan, I say, "Oh, you grew up in a broken home, huh? You root for the losers."
So what made you? What sparked your curiosity in spirituality and metaphysics and esoteric traditions? You said you picked up a book on the occult.
I picked up a book on the occult and went over to my neighbor who was Jewish and, what is this Kabbalah thing? I'm really curious. And he recoiled in horror. That's mysticism. And, I started reading Blavatsky and Ralph Waldo Emerson and science fiction. I became convinced by the time I got to college that, Western spirituality was all about art, surrealism, and psychedelic things. And, I'm coming in on the heels of the hippie era into the punk generation. And Patti Smith then grabbed me. Jesus died for somebody's sins, but not mine. And that was it. I left the church. That cost me at home. Let me assure you, my mom was a very strict Roman Catholic. But I took that courage. I left the church. That ultimately got me put out of my home. But in New York City, where I kind of ended up, long story short, I discovered the OTO, and I had been playing around with the Crowley Tarot Pack for a while. It was an amazing experience I had at college with that was tremendous. It was surrealistic art. So I took some early initiations in this startup caliphate right after the Moda trial. And I read more and more and more of Crowley. Now, I'd been through Golden Dawn readings already. I had been through Theosophical readings already. I'd been through Eastern Hinduism and New Age and this. And the Book of the Law hits home. It's like, as I'm reading it, this line and that line, I've always thought that. That really summarizes my feelings and all this. And I began to see the path of a philosophical system that is set up to bring you to what a lot of people call enlightenment or gnosis or the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel. All these things get tied in different ways or explain a different aspect of something. And I began writing. And my writing always came from this illuminated place. In college, I was doing poetry, and post-college, I was writing music, but now I began writing on magical and mystical thoughts. What was going on inside of me as opposed to what was going on out there in the world, I should say. And I think you just get to a point where you go deeper and deeper and deeper. And that just continues forever if it's your path.
Absolutely. I agree. I think with all of us, you start to seek out anything and everything that has to do with it in this journey to find out which is the right thing for me.
Yeah, I think you take your intuition and people ask me, what book should I read? Or I see these on the groups and I'm like, it's ridiculous. You don't ask somebody that. You say, what's the next book that I need to read? And that's where you go, and that's your path, and then write, because you must ruminate and reflect on your inner life.
Were there any particular mentors or role models when you started going into New York and being a member of the OTO that had an impact on you personally and spiritually, that really drove you to really immerse yourself 100%?
Mentors, teachers. I started in college with my professor of mysticism, my professor on existentialist thought, other philosophy courses that I took. Started with Plato. I had a philosophy professor, a writing professor. Started with Rousseau. I even went deeply into American philosophical thought, regarding the philosophy behind the history of our Union and the American Revolution. So I had a stronger and stronger background. And of course, my thelemic work brought me even further into German philosophers and what German idealism is. And I realized Crowley took from all that. As a matter of fact, I have a blog with articles where I talk about Schopenhauer and Kant and Nietzsche and Sartre, of course. And these guys shape a process of inner thought. And they just stop short of telling us what we think. They show us how we think, what the human soul is, and the psyche and mind is the soul.
And have really forced everyone to take another hard look at what really makes us tick.
Yeah, more than what makes us tick, how we construct it. You start constructing it, as a child, as an infant, with your first impressions of the world. And that awakens up a whole life inside the mind. And as you feed that mind with ideas and thoughts and perceptions, you're building a soul, you're creating soul. As you go into art, you learn how to move that soul. As you start writing philosophical thought, you mature and curate that soul so that you become ultimately your own person.
And all of those philosophers that you did mention, they're also closely associated with magic. And are always referred to, or there's a very, very thin border between that type of thought and magical thought.
Well, they're one and the same. The only difference in a magical philosophical system such as Thelema, or even what the Golden Dawn theoretically produces, and I should say what Thelema theoretically produces too, because I'm the outsider in Thelema, and probably universally hated, in those old established groups like the OTO and its splinter AA lineages and all this, because they seem to teach nothing but the outer. And that's not where it is. They ignore what they choose to ignore of Crowley's writings and directions. And I really feel like I've been following the AA system very much akin with Crowley's directions. And, I've been feeding my soul with the reading list and not caught up in saying the magic word to get the holy sacred girl to do all sorts of prurient things for me.
And there does seem to be a degree of vitriol among Thelemites in certain circles where somebody writes a book on Thelema and they're kind of really brutal on it, and
They're brutalized if it's not caliphate related.
Yeah, I guess it has to pass several litmus tests, maybe,
Well, you have to go back to authority. How many times, we've had contact here at the church. My wife especially stumbles into these dialogues with, and will encourage somebody to write on an interesting thought they have. And they'll say, well, I have to go back and check with authority to see if I'm allowed to write that. You're never going to make it. That's all it is.
That just seems so stifling.
Yeah, so the caliphate controls, or at least had controlled, the publishing industry. Hopefully that will change, but only in a certain way. You'll see that most of these writers keep rewriting the beginner books. They keep rewriting Magic and Theory and Practice. Okay? You can't sell intermediate and advanced books because people won't read them, and so you can't make a profit selling them. So we'll take Lon Milo Duquette, and he'll just write Magic and Theory and Practice from every angle, comedic and not. And then of course they sit there and go, oh, he's truly a master of the temple because he published this book. And it's like, okay.
On that note, what inspired you? And had you already met your wife when you formed the Gnostic Church? And tell us about how it's associated with the Abbey of Thelema.
Okay. Interesting story. Actually, the Gnostic Church was, originally formulated probably, let's see, I've been married to my wife for 10 years. We met a little while before that. I lived in Clifton Park for 10 years. Then it was 10 years, and then we go back to 84. So, we go back to 92, I think. I first incorporated the Gnostic Church in 1992. I meet my wife in 2012, 2013. So I had this vision of this church after I left the caliphate. They got involved in a breakup of mine, and just basically had a pretty girlfriend, and Jim Wasserman and Bill Breeze wanted to fuck her. And that's kind of how that certainly began. That makes a long story very short. And I realized the caliphate was a fraud. They weren't these holy guys walking on water at all. Ultimately, in the hard way I've learned, these guys are just publishers. That's all. They managed to secure the Crowley copyrights, and they still to this day know nothing about magic. I get involved in the motor stream as I formulate the church and realize they don't know anything either. They're playing horseshit games with their magical lodges, and it got to be a sick joke. The Gnostic Church then really became something that was kind of an online instrument. One day, my wife contacts me electronically with "Do What Thou Wilt," and pretty much she's into the church. Well, interestingly enough, something that people didn't know at the time was I was in the process of buying the church. So as we meet, we take a short drive to come over here so I can show her the church I'm buying. And as we're doing it, I says, I just want to buy the house next to it, and it'll be a perfect little life, And as I'm showing her the church, the guy that owns the house we live in, the Abbey of Thelema, is mowing the lawn. And he put a for sale sign out from the last time I went there. So I walked over and said, we'll buy it. And the church I had to buy for cash, but I was able to get a mortgage on the house. And we've been here now ever since, quite proudly declaring the church as the first fully owned and constituted practicing Gnostic church on the continent of the Americas. And we're practicing modern Gnosticism. We're not going back to some ancient Gnostic texts all buttered up over Jesus. And not too long thereafter, we were able to move into the house, and we were able to finally close on the church. We moved into the house first, actually. The church took a longer time to close. And really, she's been the conduit for ideas to get this church off the ground, to make it known. I knew nothing of social media when I met her. I didn't, we had our own church email group because I was still in the Yahoo groups phase. I'm an old fuddy-duddy. Whereas my wife knew this Facebook stuff that I had always ignored. So we started there, and it's been a slow process of trying to, turn on the magic lamp and get some attention. And we still operate to this moment on the philosophy, either you're attracted to us or you're not. If you're attracted to us, you're one of us. Come on in, let's have some fun. And if you're not, see you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for the layman, how would you describe the core beliefs and practices of the Gnostic Church to somebody who would be totally unfamiliar with something like that?
It starts from the simplest idea. You have an inherent capacity for genius, whatever that might be. You may be the school janitor, but how you relate to the kids, your staff, and everything else may bring to you great meaning that you feel part of the institution, and you begin to see that what you're doing is producing the educational fabric of the school in a certain sense. And you may bring some force of personality to that. And that, I think, is really where it gets to. You're bringing a certain force of personality, and that is your genius. And I'm not going to judge how you manufacture that genius, what you do to demonstrate that genius, because it's all entirely in the doing. We can be highfalutin, like magicians might be writing the great holy books, or we can be, on that lower, more Hylic level, the man of earth, who participates in the world, really gets into raising his children. And we want to take you into our church and help you to start the process of finding out what your inner self is, but also having a place for you to bring your family for spiritual insight and growth. We sit here in these woods where all the country's new religions started. Whether we talk the fundamentalist movement, or we talk to transcendentalists, or even the theosophists, and so many other groups, the Mormons, we're in these transcendentalist hills, and we take great identity with Ralph Waldo Emerson and Walt Whitman, because Emerson was writing Crowley and Nietzsche before Crowley was. Crowley wasn't even a twinkle in Daddy's eye when Emerson had already formulated the ideas Crowley would eventually come up with. And Emerson would state them far more plainly, and really give us a place where we can all understand that we all fall into our career. Whether it's vocation or avocation is another matter. We all follow that orbit that is true will. And we do it as long as we're conscious.
Now, what role does the concept of moving the soul play in the spiritual practices and teachings of the church?
Well, I'm going to speak as a piano player here, I guess. When I'm taking say a rootless chord, and I'm building a phrase over that's based off of the chord, and maybe several scale ideas associated with that chord, or maybe even a scale idea not associated with that chord, but I'm trying to say something. I got to the point with blues where, and even in my more jazzy approaches, where I could sing the improvisation as I was playing it. I knew the sound, and as my singing became more, the notes that I chose in my singing became more intricate and more articulated. I began to see that I was moving soul. Even to perform another piece, anytime I got involved in, say, a classical piece that was a bit longer and a bit more challenging, I really found that I was dealing with abstractions in all causes, and I was getting down to the root of soul. And that's in that substrate, that abstract, numerical place, that mathematical, Pythagorean, pre-verbal place. And so, like a dancer, like a painter, like a con artist, like a clown, all of these people are all moving soul in their own way. Now, the con artist is obviously less moral in nature, but the qualities of the movement of soul are displayed through that, though. The actor who, so becomes a part is really doing evocative magic. And the highest magic, of course, is writing on that inner experience. This is what, Kant and Schopenhauer and all these other guys were doing. They were writing on their inner experience. So they had an experience and you write it down. You read a book and you write it down. It's really, the magical philosophy is really college in its own way. You are dealing with psychological and other movement of soul that is something you're not going to get in a formal academic institution, but you're going to do all that same work as well. So you're doing more.
And you guys also incorporate elements of Thelema, the Kabbalah, and other esoteric traditions into its teaching and rituals. Is the church similar to an OTO or an AA type structure? Is there degree work and things like that?
The church, no. I mean, you can choose involvement in the church. We see the church as the Wanga in the magical system of the Obi and the Wanga that I think is most easily explained as the marriage of heaven and earth. The spirit is Thelema, but the body is the building of the church and the community that it houses. And so that is really its only magic. The church is a place where we do not look for the night monk of Thelema, because that is not the involvement at a level almost everybody even wants or hopes to get to. So we're not looking at that. Now, the church is overseen by the AA, and for those that may come to us that want to start on that approach or are already involved in that kind of approach, that's an individual approach. Like I have a few students. But they're doing far more specialist work, in its nature. We also have the foundation laid for ideas on, a magical lodge for those that want more, who come to the church and want more, but they don't want the intense work of the AA, but they still want to have some kind of magical lodge. And it really feeds the idea of the church that we are... we celebrate the body of the goddess, which is the universe. And the body of the God is ineffable. She is the thought of that God. And so to promote and rehabilitate the goddess in our society, because that's really the core of Thelema. That's what Babylon and Nuit are all about. Crowley is trying to take the goddess that was rejected in Abrahamic faith and turned into a beast, and he's trying to say, no, she's the complement of the God. You have to understand both to have any metaphysical insight, any mystical insight.
Now, can you reflect on any maybe challenges or obstacles you've encountered on your path to founding and leading the Gnostic Church?
Do I object to obstacles? Is that what
Can you,
you're
no,
asking?
can you reflect on any challenges or obstacles that you've encountered since starting the church? Any observations
Well,
or
I've started on
has there
obstacles
been
that,
adversity in getting the
I've
church going?
experienced, yeah, I've experienced tremendous amounts of adversity. But right from the start, as soon as I left the caliphate, when you leave a cult will chase you for the rest of your life. You'll always be persona non grata. And, they've given strict orders the OTO's given strict orders to their people to abuse me in any corner where they find me. So I've been put out, but, we've had more material adversity even here in town, from death threats to attacks on our building. There's websites have been erected, and comedic caricatures have been constructed, and laugh.
And is this coming from the local community, or is this?
The material approach is very, very local. We just got through with a week worth of attacks, and I had to leave the school position that I was in as a substitute teacher because they discovered that I had this church, and the death threats started coming, and we got the hell out of there.
Wow.
I'm expanding what was my part-time job to supplement that into a full-time position now.
And what is it that they think is going on that they take such objection with, or have such
We don't have
vitriol?
Jesus. We don't have Jesus. Drop kick me Jesus through the field goals of life.
Wow.
We're not there. We won't be attending the football game.
Wow. In today's world, you would think people would be more accepting of alternative lifestyles and beliefs, structures.
I've spent most of my life in a cosmopolitan area, downstate, in and around New York City. You're going to meet somebody from every religion and philosophical position you can imagine within about 10 minutes.
And you learn to all get along too, because you're stuck in, you're all in this one spot.
We've never given a shit. I drive past the Hindu temple and say, "Oh, interesting looking building." You know what I'm saying? I hang out with a Shintoist at work, and I'm like, "Oh, what are you guys about?" And it's just like, "Yeah, we'll do lunch. Let's talk about it." Up here, it's just all fundamentalist Christian, and that's already a heretical and hateful form of Christianity, especially with them being able to come out from under in today's politics. And nothing like good old Christian hate.
Oh, absolutely. Even look at the way that they beheaded the Satanic Temple statue at I forget what state courthouse it is, because they do so much. They like to be a finger in the face of those type of people.
They're a violent group, no doubt about it. Be scared, be very scared.
Yeah, like I've spoken to. Many of my guests come from the spectrum of backgrounds: chaos magic and left-hand path, and Thelema and stuff. And many of them feel that there's definitely a somewhat of like a satanic panic kind of atmosphere. Definitely
there's
going
a
on
word,
again.
There's a word to say for this artificially created left-hand path and the whole satanic rush. First of all, most of these satanic temples are really just political offices. They're just, railing against the takeover of this nationalist Christianity, and they're fighting that. And I find something noble in it. Of course, they're choosing the worst possible image to get connected to. Everybody hates the devil except for immature little boys who just want to get even with mommy and daddy. some of them just never get to adulthood, and that's a problem. The left-hand path, we know philosophically, both Crowley and Blavatsky write well on this, is somebody who's failed the ordeal of the abyss. They get called a brother of the left-hand path. They're ultimately self-absorbed, and their will be done despite themselves, so to speak. They're way too sophisticated a character for most people to comprehend. Then you get this fad called the left-hand path, that, where they all pretend, because they know nothing about the Kabbalah, and I'm sorry, most people ain't going to want to really appreciate what I'm saying here, because they want to have this, artificially created Kabbalah where, they, whether they're doing the night side of the tree or they're saying dark blessings and doing their little fascist groove thing. It's all a joke. It's no different from, these political movements on the extreme left that are just really a sick joke. The trans community and the how they make people invisible or whatever they're doing. Agree with us or perish. And there's nothing mystical about this at all. It's all political. And whether you appreciate being a part of that or appreciate, mocking it from the other side, it has nothing to do with mystical insight. And that they bring, like Thomas Paine said, when you mix religion with politics, you ruin both. And that's all they're doing. It's a pseudo-mysticism.
And the Founding Fathers knew to keep them as far apart as possible.
Yes, keep them as far apart as possible. As far as religious scripture, religious dictates, because remember, religion is all about thou shalt not.
And you always hear over and over how this was a Christian nation and we're built on Christian values, and they don't really know their American history very well.
No, they don't understand the importance of John Locke, a Christian philosopher, and how the concept, and along with Rousseau for that matter, how the concept of the social contract evolved, and really what that was all about. The religious tolerance or freedom of the First Amendment really was because, all these various Christian sects here were at each other's throats. So you're going to see an attempt at return to that, because this one sect may arise, assuming Donald Trump gets elected again, and then they're going to go after all the other sects that don't agree with that. They'll put out everybody else in the meantime.
Well, but everything's so tribalistic now anyway, and if you
always has been.
You're not allowed to be an independent thinker. If you have left leanings, you have to subscribe to the entire menu. If you have conservative leanings, you obviously have to be a member of everything. You can't be a conservative and be pro-abortion. You can't be, you can't be a liberal and be against illegal immigration. It's just there's a one-size-fits-all kind of tribalism that goes on these days, and then they throw that other layer on whether you were vaxxed or not vaxxed, and then that kind of split the people up even more within those groups and stuff. It's just
he can't be a man because he does not smoke the same cigarettes as me. I can't get no.
We just
it's always been there.
It's so
We've
divisive.
Always been tribal.
Yes.
That's human nature. Nietzsche writes about that. It's our tribalism. It is the key to our unconsciousness. You have to step outside the tribe, in order to see the nature of the tribe. And it's only from outside that you can evaluate that or critique it or reflect on it.
So many things come to mind, whether it's the court jester in early kingdoms. You had to have somebody who called out the bullshit.
Yes, I love you using the image of the court jester. He was the only one that could contradict the king, right?
Yeah.
At least supposedly, right?
If we can't make fun of it, then what's going on here.
Well, somebody has to tell the king no. Because everybody else, is just really loves his new clothes. It's the court jester that comes out and says, his pee-pee's hanging out.
Well, and you look comedy is very stifled these days for specifically that, not wanting to offend anybody anymore. It's like,
and it's innocuous. Yeah. But comedy has been gone down the tubes, probably from the 80s forward when it, all became, trying to figure out, how many times with that guy from the Kiss band got laid, how many different women he screwed, and the assholes of Carrot Top and all that. I come from the old school, when guys had their shtick, when Don Rickles could walk up to you and insult you for an hour and a half, and you're going to cry from laughter.
George Carlin's just super realistic look at things.
Well, he was ironic.
Just call out the bullshit. He called out so much bullshit.
Yeah, that's what he did. Yeah, he was irony. He was insight. He was still a later force. He was, what's the name of that great comedian that constantly got arrested?
Lenny Bruce.
Lenny Bruce. Lenny Bruce was his idol, and this is a political stream of thought, which believe me, I love both of them dearly. But I was like more into the slapstick stuff that you got. There's a marvelous scene. I forget the guy that played Charlie Chaplin in an old movie I saw years ago, but he shows Chaplin before he really started doing film, where he would be, he would play a drunk in the audience at the theater. And attention would come to him as he started falling and slipping in the theater. And you were crying, when Lucy has to eat the chocolates on the thing, and because they moved the machine up and she's supposed to be wrapping the chocolates, and
the honeymooners.
The honeymooners. Norton, get down here. I know that you know that you know that I know. But also the ones that did, Rodney Dangerfield, I was like, I get no respect. The other day my house caught on fire. My wife told the kids not to wake me.
Yeah.
You get to Red Fox and these guys that did, the humor of the clown or the visual slapstick, and
Cheech and Chong.
Cheech and Chong. They were just wild. And Steve Martin and, the first Saturday Night Live crew.
SCTV.
When John Belushi does Beethoven, you're falling on the ground, This was comedy. This wasn't, either the politically correct crap we got today or like the sixth grader discovering what a pee-pee can actually do. Because that's what so much of it really is. And it's innocuous. It's unreal. It's not related to the human condition. And, the clown, Red Fox being the clown, and you saw the clown get sad after everybody left, And, I remember that song from the 60s, Tears of a Clown, that comes out of that.
Jerry Lewis. He even did that serious movie where he was the clown at like the concentration camp.
Cinderella.
It's not a very well-known movie of his, but
His Cinderella, his slapstick with Dean Martin, unbelievable. Dean Martin in the Rat Pack, unbelievable. When Dean Martin picks up Sammy Davis Jr. and says, "I'd like to thank the NAACP for this trophy," you fall under it, pounding on it. Let me down.
And all those, all the old roasts,
I take people right to the roasts.
Yeah.
That's where you go. You don't even have to know who these characters are, the things they say about them, And when Foster Brooks comes up there being the drunk, forget about it, Meanwhile, they have a modern roast, and Red Carrot comes out and says, well, he fucked 82 different women. And then 16 comedians follow him saying, he fucked 100 different women. Nah, I think he fucked 1,000 different women. It's not funny. It wasn't funny the first time. It's not getting any funnier.
It's definitely fallen, you know.
Yeah.
But to change gears, what advice would you give to individuals who are interested in Gnosticism or becoming involved with your Gnostic church?
Learn how not to make a rational choice. Learn how to listen to your intuition. Let your intuition guide you here. If your intuition takes you to us, we have plenty of ways to receive you, and you'll take it from there. If your intuition says, like one guy said to me, prove to me church is any good. Yeah, I gave him a little bit of an explanation and I'm done. If you need me to prove something to the church, then you have no attraction here. Come here because your intuition guides you here. Come to the Western mystery tradition because your intuition guides you. But I warn you this, make an intelligent choice, not because you've done some survey and analysis of our church, but because you've read enough books that you've got an understanding of Western literature and philosophy and art and aesthetics already, that you have an intelligent approach to this. If you've done none of this, if your idea of a good weekend's worth of entertainment is, 18 different binge-watched programs on TV, or you're just sliding up and down watching pretty girls dance on TikTok, then you're not for us. You're just going to ruin everything, so why would we want you?
Right. You're just too distracted to have any type of deep thoughts or discipline, for sure. You can't keep off your phone. How are you going to have the discipline to, to kind of think about, higher thought processes?
You're caught up. You're at your kid's soccer game. And you're talking to another parent there, and you both discover that you're both auto mechanics. And you go, oh, you're an auto mechanic too? I had this problem. I was trying to figure out how to get this relay to work. And, oh, man, I had that problem too. And you know what I did? And the next thing you know, you're at each other's house, to drink a beer on Friday night. You become buddies. Right. And it's in that same way that your intuition will guide you if you're a mystical person, if you're a spiritual person, if you're somebody in pursuit of gnosis. I've been through the, ancient Gnostic texts of the Nag Hammadi, and there's some stuff that I find very rich in it. There's some stuff that I don't find in this. Oh, yeah, what do you find? Because I've kind of come across the same way. Don't you think that, I read the book of the law, and, I really love the first book, but the second and third books got me. And by the time I get to the third book, I can't stand it. Well, let me say, from approach, if you think about it this way, and interesting, okay, and that's how you build your community. You're building a community on that same spiritual source, and we're calling that source Gnosticism, and we're saying that it's you in search of your genius, and we want to give you, that place where we can have that excited interchange between each other, that
engaging conversation. Yes.
And that's what motivates you to go home and do other things.
I think that's what makes people seek out places like yours, is they've read the books and maybe nobody else around them cares about it or has no interest in it. And
yes,
we all like to be birds of a feather and be part of, that was the great thing about the internet, is it tied so many people who had similar interests together through means of this electronic portal.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it all. You're just looking to curate your own audience. That's really what you're looking for.
Yeah, and to ask questions, and maybe somebody can offer guidance on those questions or help you come to your
ideas.
Own conclusions. Yes,
hone each other's ideas. I read that essay you wrote yesterday, and I really, really dug it for this. But I think you need to kind of reconstruct that idea. Oh yeah, it's kind of, or Or, no, I really like that idea because, oh, I didn't understand that. And so you get that discourse, that dialogue.
I don't think many humans get into much discourse or engage dialogue in that fashion.
But we are for the few. We're subversives.
Yeah, but to me, it's very Platonist in the way that to have this philosophical discussion with your peers. And to ask these questions and to challenge ideas and to hear other people's points of views and stuff. And I think, in today's society, you're trying to keep it under 35 characters and, and you're looking at pictures of women making ducky faces.
But of course, that's the populist media, right? We are of the few. We're the subversives. There are those few that actually want to have an honest discussion, that an honest discussion doesn't turn into a dick measuring contest or any of that, and that they're relevant. Like, I got into a dialogue with this guy who uses all these Kabbalistic techniques to come to this absolutely stupid place, and then it really started with that stupid place, and he just created ideas behind it. And I'm saying, well, how does your Kabbalah work here? And so I hate the Kabbalah. Well, you're using Kabbalistic techniques. You've changed all the structure of the tree of life. And, and you're telling me you hate the Kabbalah, and your idea is, one vain exercise that nobody's paying attention to. And this happens in the caliphate all the time. It answers, it amounts to 32 in the 32nd verse of the Liber Al says, and you're not doing Kabbalah, Jack. You don't have the least understanding of it. So you get this whole populist media at all these different levels, the pseudo-intellectual to the absolutely banal and outrageous. And that's 99.999% of the audience, of course, because that's 99.999% of the world. But we're not looking to get 1 million subscribers. We're looking to get, 100 congregants, people that want to come together in an American tradition of churches, but don't want the 15th century Jesus and with its just its inept morality. As a matter of fact, we're not going to give you morality at all. You make your own moral choices. And if you're too immoral to function in society, the police will carry you away. But you got to make your moral choices. We're not going to give you thou shalt not. Thou can't eat funny looking fish on a week from Thursday. Unless watching Dean Martin at the same time. There we go. There's a religious thing.
It has to be good things. Make
it has to be good things. Yeah. So we're not a religion. We are a Gnostic practice, and what we're trying to do is, get to the real me, and you're trying to get to the real me, and she's trying to get to the real me, not me, Paul Rovelli, each one getting to themselves, the real me. And from that, you will create your vocation. You will create your career in the world, and you will make your mark on the world. We envision the church as a place for you to bring your family, to charge your spiritual batteries, to have a place to celebrate the passages of life, the passage from childhood into adulthood, the weddings and funerals and all that kind of thing that become a part of our human culture. But in a way that celebrates life, doesn't, make you feel evil because you fucked your girlfriend in the backseat of your daddy's car.
Well, I was also raised Catholic, so nobody knows how to do guilt better than Catholics.
Oh, Jews are good at it too. We're equal. I grew up in a Roman Catholic family either. Jews and Catholics really, really good at it. The other heretical Christian faiths, the fundamentalist faiths that exist in this country, the Reformed Christianity, they don't give you the guilt. What they do is they give you right righteousness and you hide your guilt because you have to declare your sins to the entire church. So you get up every Sunday and say, well, I didn't sin, but Betty May over there, I caught her looking at her shoe in a funny manner.
That Baptist kind of way,
More than Baptist, more than Baptist, until you get to the snake poison drinkers,
soothsayers.
Yeah, and it gets really weird. And of course, God knew that you were gonna go to hell long before you were even born. So why am I trying to be good?
Paul, let me ask you: does meditation or astral projection or other contemplative practices play a role in the development of members at the Gnostic Church?
I would say it plays a role in the development of spiritual growth.
But are these things that you try to, I don't know, like if somebody coming in, do you try to show them?
Yeah, if I could build an ideal universe where we had, say a large attendance of people physically at our church building, and they wanted to get together, say, on a Friday night to meditate, I would really love that. I think it's such an important key to Gnosis. We have a program called Preparing for Gnosis that it does ask the person to meditate. It assigns texts and we give videos, and it's an email program. You can get it for free, but it'll take you onto our YouTube channel. It'll tell you to read this or that. It tells you to formulate a diary and ruminate on your thoughts. Don't just write down your day's events. It's not just that Annie Mae came over to visit today and you guys, played chess in the back room. It's the thought of anime. It's the thought of chess, the movement, and I, anime came over tonight, I got to thinking how much I cherish a friendship and what is a friendship to me and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Or she pissed me off. I caught her cheating. I left the room. I come back and she moved the bishop 3 spaces over.
And why did that piss me off? Okay, that pissed me off because I lost some credibility.
Because you thought she would never do something like that.
Yeah. Well, not just that. I'm responding as opposed to reacting to your environment and taking it in and counseling yourself. How do I respond to this? And how do I address her here? And and what kind was it? Sometimes we could be doing that humorously for our buddy because we want to bust his chops. Other times it's an immature thing because I can't stand to lose, right? So I push, and so it helps you to qualify the relationship. And when I qualify a relationship, I'm also qualifying something internally in me because it's my perception of that other person. I don't know that other person in him or herself the way I know me and myself. So I only know what that person projects onto me. I've had people turn around and say, I always thought you were, when they discovered something different because, for a part of me got past their projection. And vice versa. I've been on the other end of that too. And so you begin to quantify that experience and it grows into a self-knowledge that helps you to understand the world outside of you and the world inside of you. And that is the practice of Gnosis, preparing for Gnosis. And so we give all that in our program. That kind of a program may not be something for everybody either. Some people just want to have a place simply to drop in on our monthly Rosicrucian Mass service and just, get a chance to dust the world off. The boss has been yelling at him all day and then enough of that. And he's fighting with the neighbor over this. And he just got done, with his kid's report card. And just, come down to the family, sit down and we'll do the Mass and you'll get a little bit of a knowledge lecture and we'll have a good time, some food for thought and a place outside of the mundane world. We create an environment in our sanctuary, and in that environment, you're getting a little bit more of an archetypal construct where you see the elements of your psyche. So meditation helps us to get to the substrate of our thoughts. A lot of people, consciousness is nothing but thoughts, and they're really right. Our consciousness is our thought stream, but there's a substrate to that produces those thoughts, and meditation takes you to that, and it helps you then to observe your thoughts. It gets you into your inner life, and your imagination is there. And, it's kind of as easy as saying, showing something that a lot of us do. Like I like to make silly songs. I take a popular melody and I make fun of my dog. Teddy's a dog. Teddy's a dog. He's just something that runs around and barks. And notice how we can put our sentences together to fit the melody as we make up our silly little things. And we all can do it. And we could take words and create anagrams out of them. You know what I'm saying? Ford found on road dead. And so fix or repair daily. So that we're able to do this means we're getting to a substrate. And this the creative artist discovers, and he brings that substrate out onto the page, onto the musical instrument, blah, blah, blah. And meditation opens up that door. It helps you to find it. I don't know that we have to spend our lives in constant meditation, but it's a great something to seek out when we have a few moments, In that same way, evocation and astral projection, you're playing around with the elements of your own psyche. I'm sorry, the spirit of Mars isn't out there, that I've contained it into my little talisman, which then I'll rub against my pee-pee and hopefully she'll finally come. It's an element of me. The martial force represents my own personal aggression, my ambition. The reason why I beat that other guy out to the girl, why I got the job when the other guy didn't, and that I am constructing the world I want to construct around me. So, in an evocation of the spirit of Mars or the invocation of Mars, either way, or the scrying or astral projection onto the planet of Mars, no matter how we frame it, we're exploring that part of ourselves. We're duped when we think that doing all of this hermetic crap is going to get us something in the world. Because let's face it, if they figured this out, the one immortal guy would have all the money and all the girls right now, and we'd be getting none of it because he beat us there. You know what I'm saying? The first guy that can actually do that is the one that has everything. No matter how nice he starts out in the beginning, his greed will take him.
Interesting. And what are your thoughts on somebody who practices chaos magic, where they kind of already admit that it's a way maybe to communicate with one's subconscious, as opposed
I've watched him right from the start. Ugh.
Yeah.
I have no respect for chaos magic. It's
interesting.
It has everybody, just like, you can go on the chaos groups or you can go on the evocation groups. It has everybody just chasing these externalized phantoms, and they don't know what they are. They never get the girl. It doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? It's just a whole bunch of nerdy boys that really could wish they got laid. When they finally do and make a family, they're done with that crap anyway. Forgive me. It's I'm an old man. My nose drips. I can't help it.
Are we all?
Yeah. Why do we know it never worked? Show me one billionaire with all the girls who said, I did it because I read Peter Carroll's book. Okay? They're just creating this alternate Kabbalah where, you write your thought down, you take the first letter from every word, you turn it into a symbol, and then you jerk off over it, and I got it my headphones. Hold on a second. Okay.
Well, you're not wrong about the process, but
Yeah, I know the process. Don't tell me, I danced around my candles and I jerked off on pieces of paper. And you know something? It didn't do a damn thing for me. You know what I'm saying? I want the 3 French whores and the vacation in Hawaii. When is it coming? I prayed to Jesus over and over again, and still I can't get a blowjob. And this is what all these magic, I don't care if we're doing hermetic symbolism, in our evocation practices, or we're, doing the Peter Carroll shtick because it's anti-Kabbalah. Either way, it's just another way of praying to Jesus for a boon, getting God to interfere with reality. You know what I'm saying? You want something, go out and get it.
Right. Take what's yours.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I want a good job. You buy some good clothes, you go to a good school, and you interview. That's how you get a good job. You don't sit there and say, well, I can't wait till, the top commercial fabricator puts an ad in the paper that says, looking for Paul Rovelli. Right away, we need you. No. You got to you got to please the girl. You got to buy her some flowers. You got to show her something from your heart. And, so if any magic you're going to do, it's going to be developing your heart and making the heart happen. And if you want to understand the psychic processes, you're going to have to examine them. Examine yourself that you may know who you are.
So do you think a lot of what Crowley was saying was more philosophical?
Oh, yeah, of course. He tells you right out. They don't read it in Magic and Theory Practice because they don't want to. Mm-hmm. And he gives you all, you get to Liber O, and he gives you all the hermetic exercises, how to make a circle, how to invoke a talisman, and all this kind of stuff. But he's very careful not to tell you that you're doing anything but looking for your true will. Anything done other than that is called black magic. And all these Thelemites and all these Golden Dawners and all these Theosophists and everything else are doing nothing but black magic because they're trying to do something else but find their true will. I raped your daughter because it was my will.
Well, it also reminds me of Crowley got pissed off when Carl Germer told him that Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard doing the Babylon working, trying to summon, and he was like, he's just like, what are these jackasses doing?
Well, yeah, Crowley was very concerned and yet hopeful with Parsons Lodge in the OTO. And Parsons, pretty much exploded. I'll use that as a pun.
Literally, though.
Yeah, literally later on. These guys were really just, the first free love movement, and what they still did. A
very bohemian life.
Very bohemian life, and that bohemian life always explodes. By the time we got to the 60s, free love is nothing but a curse that gives a lot of people sexual diseases and a lot of girls babies without husbands. You know what I'm saying? That's about all it ever managed to do. Free love is not free. There's no such thing as a free lunch.
It's funny. I know an individual who is involved with 2 women in his life. They all live together. And, I think at times he's twice as miserable.
A woman wakes up in the middle of the night and her husband's not in bed with her. And she goes downstairs. She sees him in the kitchen, staring at the kitchen wall and with a tear coming down his face. She says, honey, what's the matter? He says, you remember when you were young and so beautiful? And she goes, oh, and she grabs his hand. Do you remember we got caught in the back seat of your dad's car and he put the gun to my head and said, marry her, you get 30 years? She went, oh. He says, I would have been getting out today. And you want 2 of them?
It's like the same joke when they talked about gay marriage, and I said everybody's entitled to have the same amount of misery as a straight man. Why not?
Exactly. Now, of course, we're being very silly.
Yes, we're joking.
Yes. But, the inherent truth in that is how people have not long figured out how to get along with each other. How many couples just really grow old and apart but stay together. And the Book of the Law addresses that. If you're not in love anymore, it really is a curse. Move on. But people get caught loving the devil they know in fear of the angel that they don't. And
the fear of the unknown, the comfortability of that misery sometimes is better than that fear of the unknown, at
fear
least
of the
some
unknown,
people. Yes.
Fear of being alone.
What could be.
Yeah. Now, others, and I dare say, like my wife and myself, really our marriages aimed to one purpose. Now, my wife and I, we work together to generate the church. But say another couple may be working together just to really properly raise great children that will be successful. So by analogy, there are plenty of, the business couple. The couple that, they're both highfalutin professionals starting their own corporation.
The power couple,
the power couple, the political couple. All these are great marriages, where the two really speak as one, and they have that syzygy of energy together. This is magic. They may not know it is magic. They may even be God-fearing Christians running that, financial institution that they run. They may be, running the accounting firm, right? And everybody knows accountants are boring. Yeah, let's get it over with. So when you have that syzygy at work, you have that magic. And that syzygy works in synergy with other couples and other families inside of our church. And that's the way we facilitate genius in each other. We are individuals and we operate and think separately, but we work together. Whether we work together, my wife and I, or whether we work together, my wife, I, and our church and the community that it has, or my boss and I and my fellow employees to make the environment productive and pleasant for everybody. All these things are us coming together into other things. We're not forming a tribe. We're not, because we're individuals. And individuals, taking the community and worshiping the individual instead of taking the individual and fitting him into the mold of the tribe. We're doing it the opposite way. And it's that which is the key to everybody's genius. I don't care if you're, the garbage man that picks up garbage cans Monday to Friday. You're doing a podcast here and you're interviewing people and you have to discover different people and find a way to get in with them, to make them talkative and that you can pull information out of it. That could be your that could be closer to your true will than, say, your job, but it is your real vocation. Your job is just paying your mortgage.
Right, and even just participating in it is, to a degree, exercising your will.
Yeah, that exercise of your will is the movement of soul.
Absolutely. And what are your future plans or aspirations for the church, both terms of spiritual growth and community outreach?
We're constantly involved in community outreach. We're in part of our membership funding drive is on right now. But we outreach all year. We take in donors when they decide to donate. We sell books that help pay. I want to see the church grow. I want to see a community come here, but I want to see an online community too. As we start to get money, I want to be able to put in our own internet service inside the church building and then begin to do live events from in there. So, because we have an online community that's watching us, and I want to develop and grow that community, that people begin to see our church as their church, with us included. So, when they feel it's their church, they're going to come to an ownership of it because they're participating in it, and it's important to them as it is to us. So just like you would in your own house, if there's a leak in the roof, you get a roofer up there and you patch up the hole. And you don't worry about whether you got the cash for it on hand. You just pull out some cash and you go do it. Right. It's that kind of association I want people to have for our church, that they buy into it without us cajoling them. The operating idea is give first. And if you do, you'll make people grateful. And they'll participate. And if they participate, they'll take responsibility.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, how would you envision the legacy of the church and its impact in the years to come? You're how old now? And
I'm 63 now, so I figure I got about another 20 years. And I thought about this a lot. A wonderful thing to happen would be like my portrait would be hanging on a wall downstairs. Mm-hmm. And some kid be walking in with his mom, point up to it and say, "Mom, who's that?" And mom would say, "Gee, I don't know." That the church comes to its own place. And, it's not about me. It's not all Paul Joseph Rovelli. My personality, the force of my personality is very, very strong.
The church to be larger than just you and your thoughts.
It's self-sustaining and growing. It's the first Gnostic church. I wanted to create other Gnostic churches. I want our church to become the epicenter, so to speak, in the idea. Not necessarily to own those other churches and to grow our corporate structure.
But it's key to keep that legacy going on.
To make it real. Just like the Theosophists and the Transcendentalists, that we become the Gnostics created in this land. And we've shown Gnosticism to be greater than Crowley and Emerson and Campbell and other names that could be associated with the ideas we draw from. But it becomes its own idea.
Right.
That's the wonderful place.
And for it to be much larger than just the individual.
Yes, that it becomes a community of individuals, and a self-sustaining community that grows and matures and evolves, and because people are reaching gnosis, they're getting to a place where they're discovering themselves and who and what they are. And really, that's the whole height of Thelemic magic right there. Coming to know yourself. They call it the knowledge and conversation, and everybody's running around. Well, I talked to my angel talked to your angel, and let's do tea at 1. Mm-hmm. It's the Holy Guardian Angel is a metaphor for coming to know yourself. And when you know yourself, it'll be shown through what you do. And what you do will make its mark on the world. And if it's coming from will, it will make its mark on the world. Now, there's different levels of genius, as I think I stated earlier or showed earlier. So, you're not necessarily going to become the Beethoven, but nevertheless, through the community, your genius is exercised, whatever that may be. And then in the collective, other geniuses emerge in a place where genius is given space to enrich itself. Instead of being persecuted by the outside world, it's being nurtured by an inside world. And we're just giving food and water, so to speak. We're creating a celebration.
Every man or woman's a star.
Yeah, and you're divine, and you just came in here, and welcome to our divinity. And I don't care what you agree or disagree about my philosophy. If you're recognizing this is a place for that to show, then you got all we need. From there, you might have some interesting ideas. We got this one guy. He's what a guy. He cooks this marvelous food, and he loves showing it off online. He takes pictures of it, and he talks about it, and you can see that his love for baking is how his genius shines. And another guy's a doctor. He's retired now, but he's a doctor, and he had to retire. He's ill, but he has a quick wit. He's very involved, in political discussion, and he especially likes mocking Democrats. He gets a lot of fun out of that. But he'll turn the wit on just about anybody or anything if provoked. And I find the wit to be the measure of his intelligence. And I wonder that he wasn't really a great doctor. I don't know medically. He's, way down in Florida. I'm up here in New York, Vermont.
Do you have people who become or that approach the church that have never read the book of the law or are not very familiar with Thelema or Rosicrucianism?
Yeah, but one might be a Thelemite, another might be more Rosicrucian oriented, another might be theosophical. Others have just kind of had their own solitary, spiritual path. They've just been isolated, and they're finding a place for communion. And
I think that's
so
very
we have
common.
all types.
Yeah, that's very common.
Types. Yeah,
everybody's an island unto themselves, and that was the greatness of the internet in putting like-minded people in touch with each other.
Yeah. And those people can be curated. We can pull them out from the dipsoids that, just run around and need to insult everybody.
Even access to text and to more knowledge. Before you had to have the right kind of bookstore in town, and of course, I'm sure you were at Magical Child many times.
All the time. Yeah.
And not every city had a Magical Child,
Right.
And so I think the benefit of the technology these days is that one person can go online and have access to a lot of these writings for free.
Every known thing in the world, you carry it in your pocket. That people don't use it is so sad for them.
Yeah, it's like people are worried about the Elon Musk Neuralink thing, and he's basically already said, look, you already have it right here. You're just carrying it in your pocket right now. Yeah. It's just not embedded in your head.
Yeah, they don't understand social conditioning and the 1984 propaganda training of the mind and condition.
The wealth of knowledge that everybody has just in their hand at a moment's notice. The fact that you can send a message around the world to thousands of people in an instant with an image or a video.
I could say, what's that idea? And type the idea into my Google browser, and boom, information comes on that idea. Or I can find out that I'm thinking along the line that nobody else is thinking along, and I can pull these supporting pieces out that support my argument. When I was writing a paper in college, I might have to go to the library, and they'd say, well, we can have that book for you in 3 days or in 3 weeks. And I had to wait for it, and then I could read it and send it back, and then, I needed something else. You could do all that now in 5 minutes.
Or it was already checked out.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, but I got it all right now.
Yeah.
Any idea you want to research. But now you have to be able to come up with a thought, even to ask, what is it? They turn around and they drop this idea, and I was like, can I explain what this is? And I'm like, well, why didn't you just Google it first? Why are you asking me? You want me to spoon feed it into you? And that's what they want. They want to hear, the spoon-fed crap, and everyone will turn around and say, well, this is what it is. And so you're getting information that you're trusting from a stranger who may not know what they're talking about.
Right.
And in the spiritual world, these dumbass memes occur, unconditional love. Unconditional love, walk out your front door and marry the first person you see.
There's lots of...
Because there's your unconditional love.
Yeah, I have to admit that term is kind of, ridiculous,
And we're all one. Let me have your bank account number. We'll be more one that way.
Under any condition, I love you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even while I'm slapping you in the face, oh, Ignatz.
Yeah, while I'm cooked out across the room, I still love you.
Yeah, I still love you, Ignatz. Remember that old cartoon where Ignatz is a little mouse and he throws the brick and hits Crazy Cat in the head, and the hearts come out of her head. She goes, "Oh, Ignatz." Slap me, silly lady.
It's just people's attention spans have really shortened as well. Yeah,
they've never had them. Let's not complain about people.
But it's true. Like reading, book sales just in general. I mean, if you look at over the last 30 years, how book sales have just
Don't tell that to Danielle Steele. She's still selling a lot of books.
Niche markets?
Yeah. Well, no. Danielle Steele is the dumbass market. The dumbass market sells the most books, right?
Right.
Okay. It's your summer reading, your light summer reading. And well, that's all people read mostly. But even when they started reading, that's all they've ever read. Okay. Until... we lost our academic institutions at some point in the 80s or the 90s. But up to that point, to get an undergrad education, it meant that you read our history, you read our philosophy, you understood our culture and all these things. That's what a BA degree meant. And even if you got a Bachelor of Science, you still had to have some of the humanities and the arts mixed into that. And only 10% of our country went to college at all. And then of that, only 10% of them actually studied human letters, And that leaves 1% of the world right there. Before, our college institutions were turned into business schools. Now you go to college to get a job. So keeping
even that's ran its course.
Yeah, even that ran its course at a certain stage. You can't even go that far. So, now the colleges are, just making sure that you're trans happy and that you agree with the trans community, and, they kick you out of the institution. So they're identity politics. But we can never hold the mass audience accountable for anything. We don't give a damn about them. If you're focused all on what they're not and what they can't, you're not getting a spiritual approach. You're just doing the self-righteous. I'm holier than thou. They're the mundane and I'm the initiated one. But they're the walking dead, and leave them, let the dead bury the dead. Just those who are of us are the enlightened minds. And even if, I practice a philosophy called dualism, but even if you're a monist or a nihilist, if you're practicing philosophy, you're kind of one of us. We're going to disagree on certain points, but, you're one of us. You're one of that 1% of people that have an education. And we just have to leave the rest of them to moping their way through life as they are. I'm not going to reach out to them. People say, well, why don't you put more pictures of happy, loving couples and families? And I'm not looking for the idiot. You know what I'm saying? Because that will take everything away. looking to build something for genius, for people who care enough to be themselves. And they must have, experienced some level of isolation, because how else can you find yourself? If I'm so busy being titillated by the world, then, I'm going to be so busy being enamored of the world. And the world's got many beautiful things.
I think a lot of people can't be alone.
And a lot of people, what?
They can't be alone. They're they're too codependent on having other people around them constantly.
Being entertained, running from pain and towards pleasure. Reading that Dostoevsky novel, well, he's a piss poor writer. He's going to put me in a hell of a lot of pain. So, the Giants are about to do kickoff on the International Sports Channel. And much easier to do, right? Call a couple buddies, get a couple of beers. Why sit and read a book? Missed you at the bar last night.
Yeah, I didn't come to the bar last night. I was reading this book on Nietzsche and
existential thermodynamics.
What are you talking
existential
about?
Thermodynamics.
Those long-haired books, boy. I put them there. What is that? Foghorn Leghorn.
Yeah. I said, boy, I'm going to show you how to play baseball.
Put them long-haired books down, boy. Look at here.
That hits the point very well.
Where can everybody go, my listeners who hear this podcast, to read up about the church and about the good work that you and your wife are doing?
Start with our website, gclvx.org. Start right there. Go to our YouTube channel, the Gnostic Church of L.V.X., the Gnostic Church of Light.
You do a blog also, don't you?
I have a personal blog that I'm writing to a little bit more of a heady crowd on there, so I don't kind of send them there firsthand. But, certainly if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll get a link to our link tree. And from there, you get all our links. And I say just go right into preparing for Gnosis. Take our program. You'll get a weekly lesson. It'll include watching of this video, maybe writing about that, thinking about that, and start the process. If you're already engaged in that process, drop us a note via, text message through our Reddit. We don't sit too much on Facebook personally anymore. I got people in our church, kind of copying what I put on Reddit because I'm sick of getting kicked off Facebook.
And we hadn't really interjected, but you're also an author of several books.
Got quite a few, yeah. And, I started, one of the earlier ones was actually the breviary of the Gnostic Church of Light. So there's books that, deal with the Gnostic Church and its sanctuary of the Gnosis on a very heady level. The book I think I saw the least of is The Starry Gnosis, an American revelation. And that I found surprising. I thought that was my one accessible book that was easily accessible. But I got commentaries on Liber 65, Liber 7, two sets of commentaries on the Book of the Law, and other books. I think these, because they're selling, so people are recognizing them, and they're giving some great reads. I'm not going to, I couldn't even qualify what I make from the sales as a part-time job, but we're making some money. We're selling some ideas, and we're getting some respect. And we're really carving that niche out despite the L.V.X. community's efforts to shut me down. And they've done everything they could.
Is there any new books on the horizon?
My blog has been my passion because I'm able to generate ideas and push that on. I've been thinking about collecting those blog articles and putting them together. I'm working, but I've been working for a long, long time on translating the Enochian prophecy Liber Loga. And I've done a good bit of that work. I really want to finish that up. I want that to be my quote-unquote great work. my prophetic insights into the nature of the universe. Prophecy is not prediction of the future. It's insight. It's understanding the world and man's role in it. And all the holy books of Thelema point to that. And I think Liber Loga does too.
Did you also write a book on tarot?
I wrote a book on tarot. I got the whole tarot workbook, the whole astrology workbook, the whole magic workbook. I have a book on invocation practices, how to do a proper invocation. I have Thelema as a philosophical tradition by analyzing Thelema in comparison with Blavatsky's two main tomes, The Secret Doctrine and Isis Unveiled, and even the theosophical version of the Zohar. So I've got a pretty good round robin of things, whereas I think my blog gets much more metaphysical than even my commentaries on the holy books.
And are your books, I noticed obviously they're on Amazon, but are they also on your website, or what is the preferred
They're on
method?
Amazon.
What's the preferred method of buying?
Yeah, I don't advertise them on my website. Buy them on Amazon. You can buy them as a hard copy book, which I think you should, but a lot of people don't want that. And so they're also available in electronic format at a cheaper price, of course. And I would hope that people, even to start with, the simple ones, the whole astrology and the whole tarot workbook, you're going to get a foundation in Kabbalah. For those that are more experienced at Thelema, I think Thelemic Kabbalah, it's a 4-volume set, is really going to give you summations and insights. And there we even explore our English Kabbalah, which I find is far more creative than the other Hindu English Kabbalah going around. It's been around for years and is well established in the pseudo-Thelemic community called the Caliphate. There, all the beginners stay there and remain beginners. They pay for initiations and they think they're holier than thou, and they're really just right back in their fundamentalist church. And so you get those that move through, and this is something I saw in the Caliphate, those people that come through, see how stupid it is and move away. And the idiots remain. And then, of course, you see those people that have moved away start to have their own original voice. And, I've noticed people asking lately, how come nobody mentions Paul Rovelli? He's got these great writings and blah, blah, blah. And, and that person gets shut down, and they kind of have to secretly read me so that no one knows them. Try not to sound more intelligent after reading me, and don't develop your own ideas. Whatever you do, authority won't approve.
I think another trend, and I don't know, I'm asking you this as a question also, is that a lot of people are leaving organizations like that because after maybe 6 or 7 years, there's not really that much much more the organization can offer that individual as far
the substance goes.
Just runs out of road. And
it wears off like fucking a girl on a first date. Suddenly, there's no mystery at all. These people that leave may not be leaving just because there's no substance, but they're growing up. You know what I'm saying? At first, you go to the Gnostic Mass, right? And you get to see a live naked girl in the room with you, something you don't get to see that often, right? And so you got all these prurient little boys running to the Gnostic Mass. It has just been so, turned into this mundane, creepy sideshow. And after a while, no matter how much of a nerd you are, you finally get a girl. And you're ready now to start making babies and working 2 jobs to get some money to buy a house. And you outgrow the Caliphate. It's a little boys club. That's all it's ever been. A little boys club and a nasty girls club. And these, and then of course every year there's a new generation. Every year somebody new just graduated high school or just graduated college, and they're starting their life. And so the caliphate knows they can capitalize on that. They can get a lot of dues and initiation money out of you right away and sell a few of their published Crowley books, right? This is the biggest problem inside there. And of course, the idiots that remain are nasty, arrogant pricks. You know what I'm saying? That rule social media, and you can't, and I follow some of these sites. I'm not allowed to talk on them because they'll make sure I won't. But I look at the messages, and the conversation never changes. It's always the same questions month after month, year after year,
Like I said, my observations, I mean, as far as the magical community, other authors, I hear them speak very well of each other and stuff, and not really run each other down. But when you get into the specific area of Thelema, or you're talking about the AA or the OTO, yes, it's
everybody else has the secret, right? Everybody else knows the key, and how dare everybody not think like me? That's really it. Or does authority confer this? Has authority allowed me to publish that book?
They're always the most brutal critics too, just like in the
Well,
forums.
they're not brutal critics. They're shallow critics. They're dumbass critics. They'll take what you say out of context, recharacterize it in another manner, and then after they've built that straw man, they'll attack that. And everybody will believe them because they're all in the same mob. Mm-hmm. And that's really what goes on.
Have you seen the trend of these AI-generated books and YouTube channels now that are dealing with occultism?
I haven't seen anything specifically dealing with occultism. I imagine that would be fascinating.
On YouTube, yeah. If you just put in like Aleister Crowley, you'll see that all these AI image-made ones with like voice-generated narrators. I mean, it's like 100% made-up bullshit. I don't even...
maybe there is one that I saw recently. I put a couple of the videos, actually linked to a couple of videos on our church group on Reddit. But I liked what it was saying because it was characterizing Crowley rather accurately. It put it in a whole shroud of mystery with a mysterious voice and the mysterious music. But it created a good introductory piece that it was worth putting on my group for those that might be looking for an introducing entrance into Thelema.
Well, the next level, and it was pointed out to me by an author, that now on the market they have like these author names that are like combinations of other authors, it's like, like their last name, but somebody else's first name. And they're all AI generated books, which are just like regurgitated, magical garbage.
So in other words, AI has reinvented Juan Milo Duquette. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm not telling.
Or Martin Starr, or what's the name of that other guy that left Thelema after he got done with the caliphate letting him publish? But whatever. Yeah. These guys, the regurgitators.
You had Jerry Cornelius. He just passed away. No.
Yeah, thank God he's dead. Now he'll go on to be the half a footnote that he's going to be. He was a sick historian. He brought out some interesting history, but then of course he skewed it to make sure that it all fitted his view of things. It was not in the least bit a scholarly history at all, and it just all led to the fact that he's the true caliphate. Forgive me. So he should have been the true caliph, and what he learned from his pretense at Grady McMurtry being a high-level AA. High-level AA doesn't become an alcoholic, writes bad poetry, and never had an original thought in his entire life. Come matters, his supposed great student. The genius of the potential genius of Jerry Cornelius could have been in his pretense at making McMurtry, his AA teacher, and that McMurtry was, an adept. But the truth is, McMurtry was nothing more than a drunk that was poisoned by the OTO, so that, after the lawsuit. And
he was sued, right, when he tried to claim he was caliphate, or
the whole Moda story comes into play there, and that's a whole long story.
I'm sure a torrid story. It sounds like as well.
A torrid story, but to make it short, they were propping McMurtry up at the trial. He was so drugged up, and he died not long afterwards, and so they got full control of the copyrights because those copyrights belonged to McMurtry then. And so he had to die. They died. They made their money off of the last years that they could claim copyright on Crowley's stuff. They've cornered the...
Who owns all those copyrights now, Paul?
Most of them are all public domain. There's a little left, trademarks and things like that. I think one book remains in the U.S. In Europe, everything is fair game. They were U.S., the Caliphate's headquarters in the U.S., and so they were able to secure some favorable something or other. I've got a cease and desist from them for trying to publish something, and I've had to sue them for what they've done to my attempt to publish formally other things. McMurtry was just basically nobody. And I thought Jerry Cornelius's genius was that instead of saying, these are all my thoughts, these are his thoughts, this is his great teaching. And what an interesting, clever, mercurial way to do that. But I think Cornelius came to see that, lied so hard that he convinced himself that he really did get something out of McMurtry. And he thought his history books were somehow writing. He was just writing a pseudo-history that he put together. Now, it's not that he didn't divulge some interesting information. The formula of On gets exposed through him. And there while he didn't show his own brilliance per se, he was able to elaborate on that in order to betray the caliphate, because they didn't make him caliph. And so, his scholarship is incredibly compromised past all that, because it leads to his proof that he's the caliph and that McMurtry legitimizes his lineage in the AA. He couldn't legitimize himself. You know what I'm saying? He never reached adept. He was an alcoholic who threw beer parties where everybody got naked. His last wife finally left him, but she only married him because she was trying to become a man through surgery, and decided, so that she can get a soul, because Crowley teaches only men have souls. And so these people reliance on Crowley being the corner of the truth. It gets to be ridiculous, and that whole nasty little game. And I tried to discuss ideas with that community, and they just all became a big gangbang, get Rovelli. And so they just played their self-righteous goo game. And, sometimes they even pulled a thumb out of their mouth, shriveled, but,
Yeah, definitely a wealth of knowledge when it comes to all the players and the characters, and
I know them all. I have legitimate complaints about them all. I can show how Eshelman found an end around the AA stricture not to charge money to students, and his pretense at scholarship. You know what I'm saying? He never produced an original thought. And I could say the same thing about Shoemaker, who forces his students to become his psychiatric clients. So what, he's getting the dope on them? You got Ray Eels, who's trying to start a cult, and he's a control freak. And what's that guy, David, think of his name, who makes you send him a frontal nude picture of yourself so he can blackmail you if you ever leave him.
Like the Scientology thing.
Yeah.
And that's a rabbit hole that I find myself, I go sometimes down and watch a lot of John Atack videos, or
Well, I mean, I dealt with the Scientologists years ago.
It's supposed to be
fun.
structured very much like the OTO and the AA.
Well, they're not. They have like these many degrees of getting aliens out of your mind.
The Thetans, yeah.
Yeah, well, they were aliens, right? Because, God's on an alien planet somewhere, kind of like the Mormons.
Yeah, Xenu, and he froze them, and then they put them in volcanoes, and then they had atomic explosions.
Yeah, and they do an audit of your brain, and
Hubbard used to claim to be a dear friend of Aleister Crowley. In fact, there's a video clip of that. Although it's not based in any truth or
Hubbard,
they had no correspondence whatsoever.
None whatsoever. Hubbard just found that Parsons was a sucker, and he realized that you could create a religion for suckers and make big money doing it, and he did it.
Yeah, it's amazing. He did what Crowley tried to do in a way, and.
Well, Crowley tried to do it with truth, the force of truth. Hubbard tried to do it as a con artist.
Like I said, that's a rabbit hole that I like to go down every now and then. Just
Well, you have to if you go through Hubbard, you must reach P.T. Barnum. There's a sucker born every minute, and you see Hubbard is the grand American wizard.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He attracts all the suckers. They give him all their money. There is no better way to get rich, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, you got paying for all those levels. We'll come up with some new ones.
Joseph Smith figured it out, created the Mormon Church.
With the magical glasses, right? They could read
glasses.
They could read the plates.
Underwear,
right?
Yeah, magical underwear. Don't forget the magical underwear. You know what I'm saying? Oops! So I think I wet them.
Another book that I haven't finished reading, but it was another character that I was interested in. Was what is his name? Wilford Talbot Smith, the gentleman who ran the Agape before Jack Parsons.
Yeah, Wilford Smith. There's a really great, I give you a really great AA story about Smith.
Absolutely.
Smith is running the OTO Lodge in California. It started out in Canada, and there's where he and Akkad interacted with each other. But somehow Smith makes it out to California, starts running this magical lodge for the OTO. And Crowley doesn't really like what's going on. He's the one that really kind of turned it into this free love cult. Meanwhile, he's auditing all of their members, and he's secretly recording all of their conversations where he's the guru, and they're exposing their innermost truths to him. And they don't know they're being recorded. And Crowley doesn't know this either. But their free sex and psychedelic sessions greatly concerned Crowley because he didn't want a free sex cult. That wasn't what it was about. And he needed to remove Smith, and he wanted to put in Parsons. He felt Parsons was far more intelligent. And, and Parsons was. You see from even the writings that survived. Parsons.
And he was so loyal to Crowley, too. I mean, he called him father. He sent him money.
Yeah. But Parsons had his own issues, and Crowley was aware of that too. However, Crowley didn't want to offend Smith and make him an enemy by taking him down as Lodge Master. So Crowley took Smith's horoscope and decided to interpret it in such a way that kissed Smith's ego. You have a great mission in life. You got to give up the lodge, right? Now, this letter and copy of the astrology chart was, before the days of the internet, was passed down from legitimate AA person to legitimate AA person that had traced back, and it had a red ink countersign all the way through. If you didn't have this in a red ink countersign, you're not putting up something real. And I got a copy of this from somebody who later rebuked me and then lived to regret it. He originally supported me. Long story and all that. So if you didn't receive a copy of this, you didn't have an authentic contact with a lineal AA person. It didn't mean much besides that. It was just more of a curio. And so I have that downstairs in my archives. And it was a way that Crowley seduced Smith away from the lodge there so that he can install Parsons as lodge master. Smith would kind of retire with his girlfriend, become wife, which was, I think, Parsons' younger Parsons'
the older one. It was the
sister.
No, the younger one. The younger one went with Hubbard. The older sister went with Talbot Smith.
I think you're right in that.
They had a baby, and I think they went to Mexico or something like that.
Yeah,
Didn't they go down to Mexico and try to start up a lodge or something like that? I believe.
Parsons was also on his way to Mexico. I think his movie star actress one.
Well, it was interesting in the Ridley Scott series there, that Stranger Angel, which was based on the
we watched that show with great passion. How sad it was they didn't go into another season.
The door opened up and it was L. Ron Hubbard, and like that's how they ended it.
That's how they ended it. We wanted to see that next season.
And I understand that characters are an amalgamation of several people that are talking to Jack and stuff, you know.
You're not getting history out of that series.
No, it's a story.
A general feel.
Yeah, it's a story with, but it was so good. I wish that they would have continued it. But I believe even in the series, Smith got his marching papers. It was like, oh yeah, you're going on a big mission, and
that was the whole thing. That was how they got him away.
Yeah, that's how they got rid of him.
And the interesting thing is, coming through all those initiations, and he's initiating others, and still he was so readily and easily seduced. Yeah, this was Crowley's one lodge before he died.
The Unknown God. That's the book that I've only gotten into superficially.
You're talking about the British dude, Kenneth. Oh shit!
No, it's Martin Starr.
Oh, Martin Starr. Yeah. Now, Martin Starr was, I think, the second reader, the second authorized publisher, and then Duquette is the third. There was one before, I can't think of his name right now, that had the Caliphate blessing. Caliphate controls the Thelemic publishing industry. Mm-hmm. You can't publish anywhere and anything without the Caliphate's permission. And Martin Starr was the second in a line of ninth degrees that they were kissing up by giving them book deals so that they can make a few bucks, because the Caliphate never formulated their profess houses. Mm. And rather, they've been collecting Crowley memorabilia, and everybody of ninth degree has been keeping it all. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they just decided to reissue that. I think I read that about maybe 3 months ago, because it's currently going for about $300 to $400 on the internet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so now they're going to reissue it. So
they'll issue it in a small press to kill its value and get control back.
Yeah, and a few of the authors have told me, I don't know if you can concur, but they say most occult books usually have runs of about 500 these days.
You're not going to make much. If you can get Llewellyn to publish you, you might make 10 grand on an initial payment, but you may be giving some of that back.
Right, and Llewellyn's kind of like the safe magic publisher.
Yeah, they want watered down content.
Yeah,
they want populist-oriented stuff. Any of the other publishers are too small. So now you know why they only do beginner books. There's no sale in intermediate and advanced ideas.
Right.
And
just kind of keep recreating the initial wheel for a lot of
each next generation,
for each armchair magician.
Well, not even each armchair. Some kid today in June, a whole bunch of kids are going to graduate high school, and by September they're all going to go, "Who's this Aleister Crowley guy? I've been hanging out with 3 or 4 girls here, and we've been doing a little bit of this and that," And there's your next generation to buy the books. There's your next generation to seek out the order, to get initiated and play all that game. So What were we saying? We were talking about the book publishing.
Yes.
In that they're going to buy their first books. And if Crowley's book's not in print, well, Milo Duquette's got, Magic and Theory and Practice Interpreted. And, you'll go out and buy Duquette's book. So he's going to be your interesting thing. Or you're going to get that, what was that Don guy that died of cancer? He put out his 2 books. And he was a good writer, but a fraud. But I've not read Duquette, but I'm sure he's a good writer. He's readable, and the beginner is going to appreciate the insights that he gives, And I think all beginners have to go through a phase where they meet all the idiots and assholes and go through all those ideas before the better person rises above them and continues on to something more interesting. The rest of them quit the order and get the second job to raise their babies.
Yeah, I think initially, of course, like when somebody begins their process, there's going to be all of those type of pre-made, ready-to-go books for them. The kind of, all I have to do is pick up this book, and here I go, And
yeah, and once I read this, I've got the secrets to the universe because it's in a word, right? Here's the secret
but we know
word.
the true process doesn't.
Beetlejuice.
But we know the true process doesn't happen like that, Paul. We become ravenous for anything that has to do with anything, and what happens is you steamroll right over the horse shit because now you're becoming seasoned and you're becoming knowledgeable, and
Well, think about it. You and I are approximately the same age. We're if I'm a little bit older than you, maybe. And just your experience at life and living, you've seen the bullshit. You fell for it in the beginning. Now you understand it and you can see the players at it. And this is a wisdom that only comes with age. That's gnosis.
Right.
Gnosis is a natural evolution if you're paying attention to yourself and the world.
That's true. You have to pay attention to yourself.
Yeah. If you're paying attention to yourself in the world, you're going to reach, as you approach retirement age, you're going to see the youngest generations getting fooled all over again, just like you did. And you can't comment.
Hence the statement, youth, it's wasted on the young.
Yes. Yes. Youth is always, because I'd like to be young now with what I know. But we can suffer in angst over that if we want to, but we don't really have to, because I just turn around and say, man, I got it. I get it. I understand. I know.
I think you're absolutely right about that. And when I sit with my friends, drinking beers or whatever, and talking, I think we all realize that we're probably the last generation that got to be born and raised in America in the truest tradition, we're
20th century people.
Where,
we're not century.
As a young kid, you were just kind of, as long as you were home by dinner and, you were out and you had the world by the fucking tail all day long, as long as you were home by dinner, and it's like.
We had the TV to distract us sometimes, but we didn't have it all the time. We had to go out.
Until the old man sat down and wanted to watch the news. Then
exactly.
You went and found something else to do.
Then we learned to run around the yard. A group of kids in my neighborhood, we played hide and seek 3 blocks wide and 10 blocks deep, and we ran around the neighborhood. We had fun.
The level of surveillance today.
Well, the helicopter parenting, the over.
They followed them on the phone, and it's.
The last couple of years, we had like 6 police shootings of black people, but you listen to the media and you think the cops are doing this every other week, and so their hyperbolic sense of danger is destroying kids. These kids are being raised to the point where they can't get in trouble. They can't do anything wrong. If they do something wrong, we'll speak to them. Maybe we'll play a game with them, make them feel better, because it must have been some way, We have to understand their hurt. No, you don't. Tan their hide, send them to bed without dinner. They'll think twice about their behavior tomorrow. And that concept is gone. We grew up in that concept. We grew up in the 20th century where you had to think. The 21st century mind is a mind we don't understand.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say is, while I don't understand that social situation, Gnosis will not change no matter the period of time and its culture. I don't care if we're, walking ladies down the avenue in 1890, or we're driving the first buzz car in Chicago in, 1920.
Yeah. I think quote that basically kind of summarizes what we're talking about is hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times.
That's pretty much the cycle. Yes, I've heard that quote before, and that's pretty much the cycle. And, we could even say politically, countries move from revolution to revolution. At the end of revolution comes a moment of liberty. Then the liberties get curtailed until everything is so terrible and fascist that the next revolution occurs. And then it starts all over again. 2 weeks of liberty.
Yeah, history repeating itself,
always.
Yet that's everybody's favorite mantra. Don't let history repeat itself.
Yeah, and it always will. But the cycles, because I'm really into Hegel as a philosopher, and he says the divine discovers and reveals itself through human history. And if we look at, the history of Egypt and the other civilizations that supported Egypt, and then how that turned over to the great empire of Rome, and then how Rome has become the great empire of the United States, then we see that empires bring out the real history in the world, and they're totally destructive of the individual. So you have to become subversive inside the empire, and that's what you have to figure out.
Paul, you're a great guest, and I'd like to thank you for coming on the podcast. We could go on and on. I definitely have to have you back next season and talk about a whole slew of topics.
Bring them up. I definitely have diarrhea of the mouth, so you'll get more.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.